Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Just before I start, I just have to apologize because we had a little bit of technical difficulties earlier. We wanted to welcome you in this space 30 minutes before the starting time, but we had to delay. We had to fix a few things, so sorry for the delay. So my name is Hannah Kim, and I'm the director of the Tung Station Library of the University of Toronto. On behalf of the library, I'm delighted to welcome you this evening and thank you for joining us tonight. As we gather tonight, we're also approaching the Lunar New Year, a time of renewal, reflection, and celebration across many communities. It feels especially meaningful to come together through music at this moment to celebrate creativity and cultural heritage. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the land on which University of Toronto operates. So for thousands of years, this has been the traditional land of Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. We're grateful for the opportunity to live, learn, and work on this land. And thank you again for being here. Tonight marks the inaugural collaborative concert between the Cheongdong East Asian Library and the East Asian Music in the Contemporary World, or EAMCW in short, Initiative. This concert celebrates contemporary expressions of East Asian music and showcases the artistry of talented Toronto-based musicians rooted in East Asian traditions. At the Cheongdong Station Library, our mission is to support teaching, research, and learning in East Asian and Asian Canadian studies, not only through our collections, but also through programs like this that brings scholarship, culture, and community together. Throughout the year, we host events such as our Lunar New Year celebrations for U of T families, the Little Asian Toronto Festival featuring Asian Canadian writers, and a range of scholarly and culture programs that highlight the richness of East Asian and Asian Canadian experiences. This concert reflects that same commitment, creating space for contemporary creativity, cultural dialogue, and reflection to flourish within our community. The idea for this concert began last summer through conversations with Dr. Hippocrates Cheng, who is at the front. And he is artist director of the EAMCW Initiative, composer, theorist, and ethnomusicologist, and currently an assistant professor of music theory and composition and affiliated faculty of Asian and Asian American Studies at Binghamton University at the States. After many thoughtful discussions and months of planning, we are thrilled to finally share this program with you tonight. We are especially pleased to present 6 outstanding Toronto-based musicians performing the world premiere of new compositions by Dr. Cheng, written for East Asian instruments, joined by Dr. Matthew Poon, conductor, and assistant professor of music theory at the University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire. It is truly a privilege to share their artistry with you tonight. To complement the concert, the East Asian Library has curated a selection of materials from our collection connected to tonight's themes. You may have noticed the book display as you enter the room. A list of these materials is included in your program booklet that you received when you entered. We hope they inspire further exploration and deepen your engagement with East Asian music beyond this evening. In addition to this concert, we are collaborating with the musicians here on a sound recording project that will become part of the library's collection. Our goal is to make it openly accessible as a resource for teaching, learning, and research, supporting a broader understanding of East Asian music and culture. Now, I'd like to acknowledge that this event would not have been possible without many generous collaborators. My sincere thanks go to Dr. Cheng, whose dedication and musical genius have kept us all on track. That's many months of work. And to our wonderful, talented musicians who are sitting all at the front row, and to our hardworking East Asian Library team, who you met when you entered. To Kenny Kwan, whose organizational support has been invaluable, really. Who is sitting right at the corner, right there. Without him, we could not make all this coordination. And he's also organizing the Chinese Instrumental Music Symposium this August at York University. And lastly, to Ines Town Hall team. They have been amazing, fantastic. Thank you very, very much. Big applause to all those people who contributed. So tonight is our library's first full music concert. And I have learned that concerts involve a million moving parts. Really learning experience for me. All of which some came together beautifully and magically, and thanks to everyone who are sitting right here. Thank you very, very much. We are deeply grateful to everyone who helped bring this evening together, and of course to our audience, without whom none of this music would have a home. Thank you. So finally, just a few housekeeping notes. This evening is being video recorded for the library archive and for future viewing. So the first row or couple of rows may appear on the video. So if you do not want to be, it would be on your back. So we wouldn't be able to identify you, who you are. But if you don't like that, please feel free to change your seat. And there will be no intermission for this concert because we have a quite tight program today. If you need to use washroom, there are 2 accessible washrooms on the ground floor, and there's another larger one in the basement. And lastly, please take a moment to mute your phone. So that would be very appreciated for our musicians. And we hope you enjoy this evening of music. And now I'd like to invite our dear Hippocrates Cheng to offer his remarks and introduce the program.
Good evening. I'm Hippocrates Cheng, the Artistic Director of the East Asian Music in the Contemporary World Initiative, and also the composer. First of all, I want to thank so much for everyone for coming to this concert. We apologize for the technical delays for doing the stage setup and the sound, but you can see that this is a huge setup. From here to here, you see many instruments here. And this is our first time to have a performance in this venue as well, so we really appreciate your patience. This concert is very meaningful because it is the inaugural collaborative concert between the East Asian Library and this initiative. And the goal of this initiative is, there's 2. First is to promote contemporary music for East Asian instruments. Not necessarily just my compositions, but we also invite new compositions written for these instruments. Second of all is to promote and also share the story of musicians, generally speaking, in North America. So Toronto is our first step. And of course, you may notice that finding East Asian musicians are quite rare, right? Because, for example, you want to find Chinese instruments like guzheng, or you want to find Korean instruments like dagam. It may not be available in all over the place in North America. So that's why we thought about why don't we try to present our first concert with the great support from the East Asian Library and see how that goes. And we can also work on the futures other events like workshops and also some artist talk sections and etc. So tonight in this concert, you will hear 4 new pieces, 3 duo pieces. So you will expect hearing Korean duo music and then Chinese duo music, Japanese duo music, and then all together for a piece for 6 musicians. So usually each piece is free movement, so I may also talk while we have some scene change at the same time. But I'm also very thankful to work with all the musicians. This is also a very ambitious project and takes a lot of hard work from the musicians. So please give a big applause to all the musicians. And of course, I also want to thank Kenny for helping with the stage and all the staff in this hall, and of course, my dear friend Matthew Poon, who is the conductor, and also actually U of T graduate who actually came from the US to help with this concert. So I'm really thankful for all these people and all your support as well. So why don't we begin with the first piece, and we will do some setup. So thank you very much. One thing is all dual piece is in multi-movement, so we just hear the first movement. And we have Roa on the kayagam and John on the dagam, but they will also switch gear. For example, Roa is now changing to a 25-string kayagam, and John is also still playing dagam, but later on he will play the janggu, play the drum as well. So this is the second movement. So we just hear free movements for the Korean duo. Now we are going to hear another free movement for the Chinese duo. So on the stage, you will see instruments, a doklama on this side. This is called yangqing, which you can play the instrument with the bamboo stick. And then now, another instrument here is the erhu, which is a two-string fiddles. So there are three movements here. I try to not interrupt each movement, but you will expect a different musical style. The first movement, I got inspirations from the Cantonese folk music, which is highly heterophonic. Heterophonic means that they play the same melodies, but they have their own ornamentations, and they can do it right away according to their ears. And then we also have a second movement, which is more expressive and more flowing. And because for Yangqin, there are different models for Yangqin. Sometimes the Yangqin is with a pedal that you can dampen the pitch. But our players, Zhang Di, her Yangqin here is without a pedal. So I take advantage of that ringing sounds that you will hear a lot of interesting harmonies that is keep sustaining throughout. And then the last movement is the most exciting movement that is repetitive but also very energetic. So I hope you enjoy. Thank you. Isn't it exciting? So while we are setting up, I also want to share some musical features of the East Asian instruments. You know, a lot of the effects that we are hearing, we thought that is more like what we call as an extended technique, or things that you will only expect in, let's say, movie sound effects, right? But actually, some of the techniques are part of the authentic repertoires. And for example, you will hear the horse sound that's played by the erhu. Actually, it is a very signature sound that you will hear in the Lunar New Year celebrations, especially in Chinese orchestra, because this year is the years of horse, and there's a very famous piece called Racing Horse. And in that piece, there's a horse sound. That is exactly what you just heard. But of course, you can make use of it in different contexts and compositions, and that's an example of that. Now, we are welcoming the last duo, which is the Japanese duo. We have Ten on the samisen, Kelvin on the shakuhachi. So samisen is a plucked instrument, and shakuhachi is wind instruments. So again, there will be three movements. The first movement is more joyful, more swing. Second movement is more dark, more flowing, even a little bit desolate. And then the last movement is kind of like a rock and a very exciting piece as well. So please enjoy and welcome our performers. Thank you so much for Ten and Kelvin for the wonderful performance of the Japanese duo piece. So now we are going to have some scene change. We will welcome all the musicians to the stage. So at the same time, then I will be talking a little bit. So on your right side, there's erhu, the two-string fiddles. And can you guess if the bow is on the string or behind the string? Have you thought about that? Because the fiddle is holding up like this, like vertically, right? Anyone have a guess? The bow is actually stuck in between the string. So it is using both sides of the bow hair to bow the string. And for the yangqin, the doklama, they play it with the bamboo stick, right? But sometimes you also hear some kinds of electronic sound. They are actually flipping the bamboo stick, so now they are using the stick to hit the string to create that kind of sound. And then now we have the dagam, which is the Korean flute. They also have different size, different lengths, so you have they can play in different keys. And of course, the breath is very crucial for the dagam playing as well. And then we also have the kayagam here. Usually there are many models that with different numbers of strings. The common one is the 12, and we also have the 25, depending on the need of the music. And then we have the samisen here. There's 3 strings, and usually they will play with a spectrum with that kind of signature percussive sound. And then the shakuhachi here, which you already hear the sound. So now, before we start, I also want to welcome our conductor, Matthew Poon, to say hi to everyone. Please welcome Matthew. So, Matthew, I think you know the university quite well, right?
Yes and no. So I spent 9.5 years here, did 3 degrees, spent way too long. But so that's the yes part of the question. The no part of the question was I spent it all at the Faculty of Music, which is on the northeastern corner, and I've actually never been in this side of campus. It's strange, but that's the way it is.
Well, that's why you are here, right? Sharing music with everyone. So Matthew, just tell us a little bit, what's your experience on conducting for this group? Is that your first time working with East Asian instruments?
So I've conducted Chinese instruments for several years. This is my 10th year. I started conducting them in 2016. And at the beginning, I knew nothing about the instruments. And now I feel like I'm back in the same place because there are a couple Korean and Japanese instruments to which I have no idea what is possible. And so it's been a great learning opportunity for me.
So talk a little bit about the piece. There's 3 movements, right? So the first movement is more very like a soundscape. They will expect some kind of sound that you have never imagined that is only possible on these instruments. And then the second movement will be more cinematic, almost like movie music. And the last movement, there will be some improvisations from each musician. So which means every time when you hear this piece, you will hear different improvisations depending on the environment and the mood. So Matthew, how's your experience conducting all these 3 movements?
It's been great. One of the really cool things about doing improvisation and new music is that my role becomes a lot more crucial, I guess, as I tell the musicians where they are, whereas, for example, if you're doing a Beethoven symphony, a lot of orchestras have done it 10,000 times, and they don't really need me. So it's been such an interesting experience working with them.
Cool. So I think we will do some final sound check, and then we will be ready. Amazing performance by Matthew Poon, the conductor. Please give him applause. And on erhu, Emily Zhou. On yangqin, Di Zhang. On drum and dagam, John Lee. On kayagam, Roa Lee. On samisen, Ten Ten. And on shakuhachi, Calvin. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy our program. And this brings lots of excitement. And you know, all this music are new for this concert. So you can imagine how much work we have been working. And all these pieces are quite difficult. So I really want to thank all the musicians who really spent their heart and time on this. So let's give them a big applause again. And now we have a little bit interaction sections that I will welcome all the musicians to sit on the stage. I will ask them a quick questions, and after they answer, you will also get a chance to ask them questions. Okay, so get ready, prepare questions for them. Of course, focusing more on musical questions. Okay, so we will do that quickly. Let's welcome the musicians to the stage as well. So to start with that, why don't we just invite each musician to introduce their name and how long have they been playing the instruments and what's their feelings or relationship with Toronto, okay? Please make it short so we can also reserve some time for audience for follow-up questions. Maybe start with you, Kevin?
I'm Kevin Zixiaohe. I play the shakuhachi, but I'm a classically trained Western musician. I play the cello. Toronto is home for me. Because of Toronto, I'm able to become the musician and composer that I am today. And I recently got my doctoral of musical arts, my doctoral degree in composition here at the faculty. So, thank you.
My name is Aki Takahashi. My stage name is Tenten, and I played shamisen, folk three-string instrument from Japan. And well, it's been a while since I moved to Canada, and then I love snow. I hate cold, but I love snow, and that makes me feel like I stay home and then I practice my instrument, and then I love being here. Thank you.
I'm Matthew Poon. Piano was my major instrument, so just like Kevin, grew up classically trained. Started conducting in about 2009, so what's that, 17 years now. Toronto is my spiritual home and my culinary home. There's no good food out in Wisconsin. I really look forward to every trip back.
Hello, I'm John. I've been playing music for 25 years now. Grew up in Toronto. Went to U of T. Good to be back. Yeah, I think that was it, right?
Hello, my name is Roa Lee, who plays kayagum, the Korean instrument, and I got traditional trained performing in Korea, and I'm here now. I feel like a little lucky because the Toronto is a multicultural city, so yeah, and I can see all the diversity musicians. So I feel lucky here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Zhou. I do many things. I play the erhu, I play the guzheng, the Chinese sitar, and I also conduct. I'm the artistic director of the Canadian Chinese Orchestra. And Toronto has been my home since 2016. I came here and did my high school, and then my university master's, and then had 2 babies. Yeah, that's about it.
Then I feel lucky. I only have 1 baby. Oh, well, what a hard work. Hello, everybody. My name is Dee. I play the Chinese dulcimer, which is a 144 strings instrument. And it's a lot of. The thing is it's not hard to play, but it's hard to tune because all the yangqin players, we have the responsibility to tune it. And every time before the concert, we usually spend at least 1 hour to tune the instrument. And I started to play the yangqin when I was 5 years old. I just don't like to play when I was 5. It was a disaster. Every time my mom asked me to play, I just say, I want to use the washroom. Let me stay. So I wasn't really into it. But I started from 10 years old. I love to play music. And then it becomes part of my life and shapes who I am. And now I'm an ethnomusicologist. I got my PhD from York University in 2021, the time that I got pregnant. So I had my baby and PhD at the same time. Can you believe? It was a big disaster for me as well, because I was feeding my baby at the same time I was doing my research. So for now, I'm still doing my research. What I'm doing, I'm focusing on seniors' well-being, how music can help us mentally, physically, and psychologically. And Toronto, to me, I have all the friends, I have all of you, and then it feels to me like home now. Thank you.
So you can hear that musicians are not just being musicians, right? They also have a lot of things going on. Yes, sure.
Aki is very humble, but I just also want to mention that Aki is an amazing taiko player. She is able to give the most powerful and dazzling taiko solos, and she's also a leader and sensei for me in our taiko group Nagata Shachu.
So you know the goal of this concert is not just presenting new music, but also trying to present all these wonderful musicians and get a chance that we can also perform in different settings, not just the community, but also in academic institutions. But most importantly, is also looking for collaborations in the future. So this is just the start. So why don't we open the floor to the audience? We may expect some unexpected questions, right? So does anyone want to ask questions to start with? Yes, please.
Hello? 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 Is it on now? Oh, okay, okay. Thank you for this privilege to ask you a question. It's a very broad question. You know, it's obvious here that there's resemblances, like the 2 different flutes from 2 different cultures. What you mentioned about the taiko, there's also the Korean drum. Not present here, the koto, but it resembles the Korean stringed instruments, and then the erhu. And so this is a very broad question about cross-cultural resemblances. What's your take on how there are similar instruments in these different Asian countries?
Want to answer these questions?
Yes, we do share a lot of similar instruments. For example, I think the broad sense is that in each culture, Chinese culture, Japanese culture, and Korean culture, we all have pluck instruments that look similar, but creates different tone, of course. And then wind instrument that looks similar, for example, the bamboo flute, the daegum, and then also the shinobue from Japan, right? They're all resemblance, sort of the same tone, way of producing the sound, okay? But they produce different tones, of course, and their musical language is different, right? And you can hear that from the music. So for me, I'm an erhu player, but also in Korean, there is an instrument called the haegum that's sort of similar, but it's played with different techniques, but it also has 2 strings, right? So we all kind of share the similar instruments. I think this comes down to, there was no country borderline before, right? And we all share the similar culture and instruments and hobbies. And they travel around, right? And then our culture just kind of get meshed around, and we're all part of a bigger family.
Next questions? Yes, there's a question.
Thank you. It's okay. It's just adult talking.
You get the next questions.
Yeah. It won't be interesting, but so Nam, what will be the most challenging part in composing all these musics, especially the final piece that all 6 players are involved? Would you just walk through your creative process with us briefly?
Yeah, so first of all, it is a very difficult challenge because finding musicians for East Asian instruments is already a challenge because you don't know what musicians are available in that area, right? So the musicians actually define the instrumentations. So once you know who are the musicians, you know what's the instruments, and then you have to think about how to learn about writing for the instruments, at the same time also giving the room for the performers to express themselves. This is the lessons that I have been learning throughout, and of course through this project as well. And when they play together, as an ensemble, we also emphasize some sort of unity, right? Like playing together, for example. So this require very careful planning for when to have which instruments to sound when they play as a pair. So as you may notice that in the last movement, the exciting one, you notice that sometimes I pair them up, right? You hear the Japanese together, and then the Chinese, and then the Korean, but sometimes they also mix, right? So that piece, the structure is I have some written melodies, and then they play it, they also ornament it, embellish it a little bit. But there's also some sections that I just let them to improvise. And they are also good at improvisations. So the idea is to write for that many East Asian instruments have to be always clear mind and think about when to give and when to take a little bit more control. And of course, with the help with the conductor, it's much easier because everyone also have a guide during this process. But I would say that since we are speaking of playing together, you may notice that some kinds of gestures are very East Asian specific, East Asian musical gesture. And in Western classical music, a lot of contemporary composers treat that as so-called as avant-garde, or something that is really radical or unusual. But that kind of sounds is actually very authentic in East Asian music culture. So I'm sure that you get my point. Working with them is a blast for me. And also throughout this process as a composer, I think to be a good composer is not just have great ideas, but also to learn throughout the process. So like this time after working with a wonderful group, I also had a better idea, okay, what things will work better for the next time. So this is always an ongoing learning process for me as well. And this is also a very collaborative process because after each rehearsal, each performance, we also absorb something and learn from each other. So I hope I answer your questions. Yes.
Thank you, Garrett. Well, thank you very much for this performance with 3 countries' instruments. A question to Kevin. He said that you are formally trained in the Western music. I'm curious, what make you change to go to play a shakuhachi? And it sounds very melancholy. Is there a change in your thinking you want to switch back to so-called East Asian? Thank you.
That's a wonderful question. Thank you. My origin with my fascination for Japanese flutes, being Chinese myself, starts with Studio Ghibli. It was Hayao Miyazaki's film Princess Mononoke, which the soundtrack features a beautiful melody, the theme song, which happens in the forest. And I had a CD when I was in China. So I hear this melody being played on this haunting flute that I'd never heard before, which is far from anything the Western flute could do. And so I opened up the CD booklet that says Dragon Flute, which is the ryuteki, which is actually the primary flute used in Japanese court music, gagaku, which is a 1,000-year-old tradition. So I sought out an actual ryuteki flute online. So from there, I kind of branched out and I looked into different Japanese flutes. But this particular flute, the shakuhachi, has a connection with ancient China because it originated from Tang Dynasty China, when Japan and China had really frequent, about 18 and 20 times, Japan sent these massive tours to China and these massive cultural exchanges. That's when these flutes went back to Japan. Actually, in Nara, in the Emperor's Treasure House, there are 6 original Tang Dynasty Chinese shakuhachi, which are pristinely preserved still. Because China, and I think this also ties into the other gentleman's question, which is the subtle differences between all 3 countries' traditional instruments. China is a country where it was conquered so many times in history and cultural, sometimes you get these breakage in lineages. So sometimes it's hard to trace back to really ancient, faraway times, what music sounded like, what instruments sounded like. But to me, it's interesting because when this instrument went to Japan, it barely changed. So it's almost like a living fossil. And maybe, in my imagination, it's a gateway to get a glimpse of how Tang Dynasty music might have sounded. And also, this instrument in China eventually evolved into the xiao, which is much longer and thinner. So it's like a distant cousin. Yeah, and it also does change my way of thinking as a composer because Asian arts in general is much more symbolic rather than literal. And I take inspiration in terms of the philosophical and symbolic aesthetics and incorporate it into my own composing. So.
Questions? Yes. Oh, yeah, the next one.
Hello? Yeah, can you hear me? I have one question for Hippocrates.
Yes.
Just want to understand your thought process for the innovation in terms of composition. Is your goal to sort of bring forth new techniques for each instrument and play with those new techniques in mind, or is it more using the techniques per instrument to sort of bring new melodies?
Thanks for your questions. I think it depends on the style that I'm trying to do for each movement. So you can hear, let's say, the last ensemble piece, each movement also sounds quite differently. Personally speaking, I do not have a specific musical style that I try to impose for every compositions. For me, I focus more on how I feel and what I want to express. So I want to be a composer who can master different kinds of stylistic writing. So to respond to your questions about techniques, some techniques are quite new or unusual for the East Asian instruments, but some techniques are quite authentic. Just like the example I give is the horse sound from the erhu. Or you can also hear in kayagam, there's lots of bending notes. That is also very authentic. And of course, in shakuhachi, you may think, oh, the shakuhachi deliberately doing breathy sound, right? So a lot of people will have this question, but this is actually part of the idiom as well. So for me, I focus more on the color of the instruments and trying to learn from, trying to incorporate both the authentic sound with my own creativity, right? Because I feel like if I just repeat what people have been doing for many hundreds of years, this is a good practice, but this is not creative. So it is very hard to draw the line between authenticity and creativity, right? So that's why I do not have a specific style, because I think different movements serve a different purpose to a different target audience. Thank you. Yes.
Hi, this is a question for Kevin about the shakuhachi. So I bought this really crappy shakuhachi on Etsy, and it's a 7-hole shakuhachi. So I'm wondering, what's your opinion of the 7-hole shakuhachi compared to the 4-hole shakuhachi? Is it sacrilege, or can you do things with a 7-hole that you can't do with a 4? And the other question is about a Korean instrument, the dansu. Is that pronounced right? So it's like the Western recorder I've heard, but I've looked all over Toronto to buy one, and I would think that with the Korean population in Toronto, you could be able to buy a good one, but I haven't found one anywhere. So can someone recommend where to buy a dansu? Like recorders.
So 7-hole shakuhachi is not sacrilegious. It's actually a thing. The standard is 4 holes on the front and 1 at the back. And this is one of the most notoriously difficult instruments to learn and play, precisely because of that reason. It's able to play anything and everything and the entire chromatic scale, but you only get 5 actual notes, so which means all the other notes must be done by manipulating somehow your own body. With half-holing or with the neck plays a great deal of role. So, which makes all the other notes hard to produce, but also possess really interesting characteristics. So in comparison to a Western flute, where the instrument has been engineered to perfection through 2 industrial revolutions to play everything absolutely equally, with the equal power, equal temperament, different notes on the shakuhachi speak differently. Some are very strong, some are very subtle. Some are weak, some are bright. So that's precisely the beauty. With the 2 additional holes, which is actually very popular now, a lot of folk players especially are catching on to that. They give you more ease to access the harder notes to play, but they also take away the individual qualities of those notes. They make them easier to play and stronger. In terms of getting things on eBay, I've had my own fair share of buying. Oh, because I exposed myself. I've had my own fair share of buying crappy shakuhachi from eBay. But I always say it's better to buy a cheap plastic copy by an actual credible maker than buying a slightly more expensive bamboo one made by someone who doesn't know what they're doing. Because it's very important to get the right specs in order to play well and develop the right habits. But also philosophically, like one thing, for example, if you get Chinese-made shakuhachi or from other countries, is that sometimes they will cut a hole in the middle of the joint, whereas this hole, the blowing edge, must be done on the node. So that's just an aesthetic thing. So a properly made shakuhachi should have 7 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 3 is on the bottom, which is the bamboo root. Just things like that, philosophically and aesthetically, So, but I wish you all the best in your journey.
Give me your number, and then I'll sell you something.
There's questions? Yes.
Thank you for your performance tonight. I, as mentioned, do appreciate how much practice you put into your instrument. I'm just wondering what inspires you to practice and how often you get together as a group and what other outlets, what other type of performances you're able to give to the public.
I answer the second part of your question is this is our first time playing as an East Asian music group. That's why this is an inaugural collaborative concert. I mean, we practice together, but of course this is the first public performance. That's what I mean. And because most of the musicians are also Toronto-based, so they sometimes also play in groups. So for example, Emily and Dee also play with Roy and John, and then they also mix together. So they have been playing for different events and performances, sometimes as a pair, but not this may be the first time that they play as an East Asian music group. Yes. And maybe who want to answer the practice questions? Yes.
I'll extend a little bit on what Hippocrates said too. We were having lunch yesterday with Hannah. Thank you again. And one of the things that came up over and over again in our conversation over lunch was, oh, we worked together. You two have worked together before, and you three have worked together before. And so, even though this is the first time all 7 of us are gathered, there have been these tiny little groups, and then it's such an exciting experience to have this meeting of minds. As to practice, what inspires us to practice? Pressure? Deadlines? Just like almost everything else. Does anybody want to correct me on that? Okay, that sounds about right.
Well, we should have the last questions. Yes.
I want to thank you all for such an impressive performance. You all have such an incredible range of musical accomplishments and studies, from Western classical music through East Asian music, conducting, music theory, composition, multi-instrumentalists, all of you. I'm thinking maybe this is a question for Dyer, maybe everybody would like to answer this. In the beginnings of ethnomusicology, Mantle Hood spoke about bimusicality, where you would train in one instrument and then in your ethnomusicological studies you would take up another instrument. And I wonder, each of you, your identity, like you're obviously multi-musicality, each one of you, but do you have a primary musical identity? Like Kevin, would you say, I'm a composer, but I also play shakuhachi. So maybe each of you could answer that. Like, do you have a primary musical identity and all these other many things you do are sidelines, or how does all these different identities feature in your self-identity as musicians?
Thanks for your wonderful questions. I'm going to pass this around so they can give a short answer. Maybe starting from you.
I think I'll go about it in the existential way, which is existence before essence. So I exist first, and I try not to kind of box myself into I'm a Western or Japanese, Chinese musician. I try to integrate. So yeah.
I'm the only one who didn't study music. I didn't go to the school. I didn't really have a teacher. I just studied the piano from 3 because my sister was going to the school, and then I just played around, but it didn't speak to me because it was hard for me to read the music. So you can tell me how, how hard for me to be in ensemble and then I read the music. That is the hardest one, but it's for me doing the folk music, because I can, using just like a language. I just say thing I want to feel, but the reading music sometimes it just take away everything, and then it's just I can't hear anything. And just for me to just following each note is the hardest one. So I love music, so I love playing, but studying is the hardest. Just to be in some, it's just great music and great musicians around me, and then I just so privileged playing. But for me, it's just I just want to play whatever I want. That's why I'm a folk musician.
Just want to check, is this part of the program being recorded? Oh, this is, okay, so I should be careful what I say. Right, so as mentioned, some of us have both academic pursuits and more performance or creative pursuits. I came into music theory because of conducting. I noticed that the way that I thought about scores and how to prepare a score was very much music theory based. And so I thought, well, I might as well do this. But I absolutely love conducting still, and even though my official day job is as a music theorist, I actually do very little of that outside of the classroom, and I spend most of my time doing things like this to conduct. And so there is that part of where two very separate fields, in my life anyway, integrate in terms of different styles. I never thought that I would be doing something like this. I started conducting because I liked Mozart and Beethoven, and I still do. But then I find that as I'm doing stuff like this, where I'm interpreting music by a still living composer, and as I'm interpreting music that is not quite as straightforward, where this idea of, there's a lot of improvisation, I find that that can then inform my interpretations of, say, classical music. What are some things which somebody might not have thought of doing, or how to phrase something, how to maybe add a dynamic, add an articulation somewhere. How might I also try to do something like that? So there's also that kind of cross-cultural integration as well.
I learned percussion first, since I was like 7. And then I started flute. I started the Western flute when I was like in grade 4. And then I heard the Korean flute being played. And like Kevin, I was like, okay, I gotta learn. I like the flute, but I'm a percussionist, I think. And yeah, but again, like Aki, I didn't go to school for music either. I went to U of T for engineering, and then now I was doing music, and now I'm a photographer. So it's just in terms of what I identify as, I'm not sure. Like I'm Korean, but I'm also Canadian. I play music, and well, I just do things that hopefully I'm good at. Is the but yeah, thank you.
I identified myself Gayagum traditional musician, and I really open and I really enjoy the collaboration with world music or hip hop, jazz, rock, classic, any music. I really always enjoyed it, but and always think my root of the music is on the very traditional Korean music, and that root makes me very unique, or that's my thought. And after I came in Toronto, the Toronto music scene made me a composer, because when I try to play my instrument with other musicians, I need to compose myself. So now I'm a composer and 가야금 musician, very traditionally.
So I started playing the guzheng first, the Chinese sitar. I just love the sound of the instrument when I walked by the music store, and I was like, I love the sound, it's beautiful. So I told my mom I wanted to learn, so she got me the instrument. But then later on, I delved into the playing of the erhu. I still play the guzheng. I actually had a gig this morning playing guzheng. And then once I got into the erhu, I became really serious about learning the erhu. And then I found that playing the erhu is much more challenging, the string instrument. And then later, after I came to Canada, I found that Canada or Toronto has such a diverse communities, and I got so many more opportunities to do different things. In the Chinese community, I became conductor, educator, and because I wanted to be able to provide better education to our next generation, I started learning conducting. Went back to Hong Kong Chinese Orchestra, did my conducting classes, and I also learning conducting from Matthew. And then I just realized the learning journey never stops. And there was a few months that me and Roa, we were like, we want to learn the guqin. And then we took lessons together. Guqin is the 7-string Chinese zither, ancient zither. And now Roa has a guqin and I have a guqin at home. So it's a lot of fun, and I feel like if there's something that I haven't tried before, and if I like the sound of the instrument, I like the challenge. For example, Hippocrates pieces, they're so difficult to play because Hippocrates likes to use different techniques and mix them. And he's always very creative in that sense, that he's using these techniques, he's exploring and branching out his creative mind. And I love the challenge, and I think that's why we're all here. And my identity, I guess, it's just a way of challenging myself and continue to learn. And I like to share that me and Roa just recently released an album together as well. That's the fruit of our friendship over the past 10 years. Yeah. Thanks.
Hello? Yeah. I think to me, I'm more like interdisciplinary kind of person in different kinds of studies. As I mentioned, I started to play the yangqin when I was 5 years old. And I got into a conservatory training in China, started from 10 years old. And I got my bachelor's degree in Chinese music performance when I was 22. So I came to Canada, started to know more people. The first time that I came to Canada, I knew Emily first. Friends for long. It's been like more than 10 years. So I find Toronto has very diverse culture. It's a very diverse multicultural community. And I came to York University because it has a world music ensemble at the time that we were in York. And then I started to know more about improvisation because of Casey, who is here today. So I started to focus more on improvisation, and then I did improvisation pedagogy on the Chinese dulcimer because I feel there are ways that we, as musicians, we want to have our own individual voices. We want to express ourselves. We want to discover the instrument from our perspectives. That's the time that I started to realize, as a performer ourselves, we could be a composer. At the time, in the moment. So I started to improvise. The time that I started to improvise, I feel like there's some interesting thing is happening to me, which is meditation. Because the way that I'm really in the present, in the joy of the moment, the music came to my body, and then I play it again and again. So music is really the way that helped me a lot. So the time that I was really into improvisation. So my doctoral dissertation was about creativity, improvisation, and the pedagogy on the Chinese dulcimer. And then for Hippocrates composition, which is really, really good, because as a musician, as a yangqin player, it gives me more chances to practice. Otherwise, I won't play at home at all, because every time we play the same song for the same pretty similar events. So the time that Hippocrates sent us the music, it gives me more energy. I practice after my daughter fell asleep. I practice until 2 a.m. I practice until 4 a.m. That I told myself, D is back again as a yangqin player. So that's a time I feel like those composers gave us another chance to be.
They give us hard time.
Yes, hard time, right, hard time. And then this afternoon, I told my husband, I feel like my heart is getting attacked because I'm not sure if I got nervous or, I was worried about something going to happen on the stage because we got the piece in the, yes, we got the piece. And then the time I thought, okay, I can do it. I'm going to make it because the piece is so beautiful. All the chords, he put it in the music. It was amazing. I've never played it before. All the things that I haven't tried it before, I'm gonna make it tonight. So I think we all made it, and all the amazing musicians, conductor, composers today, and then that's feel me again as a yangqin player. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for your questions. Now I should make a closing remarks. Thank you so much for coming to supporting this event, and I also want to say thanks to Hannah Kim, the director of the Cheng Yutong East Asian Library, to collaborate with us. This is a very valuable opportunity that we have so many talented musicians can share their music with you. And we also get a chance to have a brief conversations. There's a lot of also very good books on East Asian music. You can also find the list of books on your program notes that if you are interested, please check those out. As a final remark, I really hope you can keep track on all these wonderful musicians' activities. Sometimes they will play by themselves, sometimes they will play in a group, right? The idea of this initiative is to start it off and then let them fly. That's the idea. And as a composer, it is impossible for me to compose programs of music every time depending on the instrumentation. So I think this is where we start. And it will be really motivating to receive your support as well in many ways. Supporting the concert or ask for collaboration will be very meaningful. So if you are interested in following us, please you can look us up on social medias. East Asian Music in the Contemporary World, or EAM.CW. You can find us on socials. So thank you very much, and please have a good night. Thank you.